Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for gathering today. There are a few things more complex and deeply personal than family dynamics. We love them, we support them, we share memories with them, but like all human relationships, there are times when things go awry. Family can cross the line. When they do, we are faced with the delicate task of handling it with care, grace, and integrity. Setting clear boundaries is an essential component of any healthy relationship, especially when it comes to family. Boundaries serve as guidelines for how we expect to be treated, what we are willing to accept, and where we draw the line in terms of behavior. When family members cross those lines, it can lead to feelings of hurt, frustration, and confusion. However, the process of setting and enforcing these boundaries with respect and firmness is crucial in maintaining your emotional well-being and preserving the integrity of your relationships. Boundaries are often misunderstood. Some people view them as barriers or walls meant to separate people, but in reality, boundaries are protective measures designed to help maintain respect, emotional health, and mutual understanding. Setting clear boundaries is not about shutting others out, but ensuring that interactions are respectful, healthy, and considerate of everyone's needs. It is about ensuring that your feelings, values, and needs are acknowledged, respected, and honored. When a family member crosses the line, the first step is to acknowledge that a boundary has been crossed. Sometimes this can be difficult, especially if the behavior feels unexpected or if it has been a recurring issue. You might feel uncertain about whether your discomfort is valid or if you're overreacting. The first thing to understand is that your feelings are valid. If something someone has said or done has made you uncomfortable, it's important to recognize that and accept your own emotions. Once you have acknowledged the breach, the next step is to set your boundaries clearly. You cannot expect others to respect your boundaries if you haven't communicated them. It's important to be specific and clear about what is not acceptable. For example, if a family member tends to make disrespectful comments about your personal choices, let them know that these comments hurt you and are unacceptable. Be clear about the specific behavior and explain why it affects you negatively. The more specific you are, the more likely it is that your boundary will be understood and respected. While it's important to be clear, it's also crucial to maintain a tone of respect. Setting boundaries doesn't mean you need to be harsh or confrontational. In fact, maintaining a respectful tone ensures that the conversation remains productive and doesn't escalate into a conflict. You can express how you feel and what you need without attacking the other person. A simple statement such as, "I understand that you may not see it this way, but when you say specific thing, it makes me feel, and I need you to avoid doing that," allows you to communicate your feelings without blaming or accusing. This type of communication fosters understanding rather than defensiveness, making it easier for the other person to hear your concern. Firmness is equally important when setting boundaries. Being firm means standing your ground and not allowing the other person to push or ignore the boundaries you've set. Often family members may try to dismiss or downplay the boundaries we set, either because they don't understand the impact of their behavior or because they are accustomed to crossing those lines. This is where firmness is key. It is important to be consistent and resolute in your approach. If you let your boundaries slip or allow exceptions, it sends the message that your boundaries aren't as important or that they can be disregarded. It's also important to recognize that being firm doesn't mean being inflexible. Boundaries can evolve over time as relationships grow and change, but they need to be respected in the present moment, and if they are crossed, they must be addressed. One of the challenges of setting boundaries with family members is that they may not always understand or accept the limits you set. Family dynamics can sometimes lead to a sense of entitlement, where one person feels they have the right to cross boundaries without considering the feelings or needs of others. This is particularly common in families with long-standing patterns of behavior where one person may have grown used to controlling or manipulating situations. When this happens, it is important to remain firm, even if it leads to discomfort or conflict. Family members may initially resist or react negatively, but maintaining your boundaries is essential for your well-being. The more consistent you are in enforcing these limits, the more likely it is that they will eventually come to respect them. Setting clear boundaries also requires a level of self-awareness. You need to know what your limits are in order to communicate them effectively. This requires reflection and introspection. Ask yourself what makes you uncomfortable, what you are unwilling to tolerate, and what values are important to you. For example, if a family member constantly dismisses your personal space, you may need to set a boundary around physical space and assert your right to have privacy. Similarly, if certain topics are off limits because they trigger emotional pain or discomfort, you need to communicate that these topics are not up for discussion. Identifying your own needs and feelings is crucial to setting boundaries that are both healthy and realistic. It's also important to note that setting boundaries is not about controlling others or attempting to change their behavior. Rather, it's about communicating your needs in a way that allows for healthy interactions. You cannot control how others will respond to your boundaries, but you can control how you enforce them. Setting boundaries is about taking responsibility for your own emotional health and well-being. You cannot rely on others to take care of your emotional needs. You must advocate for yourself. While it may be uncomfortable at first, it's essential to remember that your boundaries are not just for your protection. They are an essential part of any respectful and healthy relationship. One final aspect of setting boundaries with family is the need to be prepared for potential pushback or resistance. Sometimes when we set boundaries, others may feel threatened or hurt by our actions. They may not understand why you are changing the way you interact with them, and they might question your motives. In these cases, it's important to remain calm and clear in your communication. Reaffirm your reasons for setting the boundary and remind them that it's about preserving the relationship, not about rejecting or punishing them. Explain that boundaries are meant to create a more respectful and harmonious interaction where everyone's needs are honored. Remember, setting boundaries is a lifelong practice. The more you set and enforce boundaries, the more natural it will become. And while it can feel difficult, especially when family members cross those lines, the long-term benefits of having healthy, respectful relationships are worth the effort. Responding with calm communication, focusing on "I feel" statements rather than blaming or accusing, is one of the most powerful ways to maintain respect in relationships, especially when family members cross boundaries. Our communication style plays a critical role in how conflicts are resolved and can make a significant difference in whether the situation improves or escalates. When family crosses the line, the emotional charge can often cause us to react impulsively, leading to arguments, defensiveness, and sometimes deeper hurt. Using calm, thoughtful language not only helps to preserve the relationship, but also ensures that our concerns are heard and addressed in a constructive manner. At its core, calm communication means pausing before responding. It means taking a moment to breathe, to reflect, and to gather our thoughts before reacting. It is easy to be swept away by emotion, especially when a family member's words or actions have deeply affected us. However, reacting immediately out of anger, frustration, or hurt rarely leads to productive outcomes. Instead, it can lead to more damage, leaving both parties feeling misunderstood, upset, and even more distant. By taking a moment to pause, we allow ourselves to gain control over our emotions and express ourselves more clearly and effectively. One of the most effective techniques for communicating calmly and respectfully is using "I feel" statements. This method shifts the focus from accusing the other person to expressing how their actions have impacted us personally. It is a way of sharing our emotional experience without blaming or finger-pointing. For example, instead of saying, "You always disrespect me," a more constructive approach would be, "I feel disrespected when I hear those comments." By framing the issue in terms of our own feelings, we reduce the chance of the other person becoming defensive, as they are less likely to feel attacked. "I feel" statements are also valuable because they focus on our emotions rather than attempting to judge or evaluate the other person's behavior. When we say, "You always make me feel unimportant," it not only accuses the other person but also makes them feel that their intentions are being questioned. On the other hand, when we say, "I feel hurt when I am not included in decisions," we are simply sharing how the situation affects us emotionally, which makes the conversation less about fault and more about understanding. This encourages the other person to listen with empathy and respond in a way that acknowledges our feelings rather than defending their actions. In family dynamics where history, expectations, and deeply ingrained patterns of behavior often exist, using "I feel" statements can be especially important. Family members may be unaware of the negative impact their actions or words have on us. They may not even realize they are crossing a boundary or causing hurt. In such situations, calmly expressing how we feel can help to bring awareness to the issue. The goal is not to blame or shame, but to offer insight into how their actions affect us emotionally, with the hope of creating a more empathetic, respectful relationship moving forward. Furthermore, calm communication also involves being clear and specific about the behavior that caused the issue. Instead of vague generalizations like, "You never listened to me," which can sound accusatory and may provoke defensiveness, a more specific statement would be, "I felt unheard in our last conversation when I tried to explain my perspective and you interrupted me." Specificity helps the other person understand exactly what they did that affected us and provides a clearer basis for resolving the issue. It also gives the other person an opportunity to acknowledge their behavior and make amends if necessary. It's important to remember that calm communication is not just about what we say, but how we say it. Our tone of voice, body language, and facial expressions all contribute to the message we are conveying. Even if our words are calm, if our tone is sharp or our body language is closed off, the other person may feel attacked or criticized. To ensure that we are communicating in a way that promotes understanding, it's essential to stay mindful of our tone and nonverbal cues. A relaxed tone, open posture, and eye contact can help convey that we are coming from a place of respect and a genuine desire to resolve the issue rather than to escalate it. An important aspect of calm communication is being able to listen as well as speak. Communication is a two-way street, and effective resolution of conflict requires that both parties have the chance to express their feelings. Listening actively to the other person's perspective is crucial, even if we disagree with them. Listening without interrupting, acknowledging their feelings, and offering validation can go a long way in diffusing tension and building understanding. It is also a way of showing respect for the other person's emotions, which sets the tone for a more collaborative conversation. However, listening doesn't mean we have to agree with everything the other person says. We are still entitled to our own feelings and opinions, and it's important to stand firm in expressing our own needs and boundaries. But listening attentively allows us to respond thoughtfully rather than react impulsively, and it opens the door to finding common ground and working toward a solution. It also helps to foster an atmosphere of mutual respect, where both parties feel heard and valued. Another crucial component of calm communication is avoiding escalation. When family members cross a line, emotions can run high and it's easy to fall into patterns of defensiveness or blame. When emotions escalate, the conversation often becomes about winning or defending oneself rather than resolving the issue. To avoid this, it's helpful to remind ourselves that the goal is to preserve the relationship and understand each other better, not to win the argument. This mindset shift can help us stay focused on resolution and prevent the conversation from spiraling into a heated exchange. It's also important to note that calm communication doesn't mean we avoid conflict altogether. Conflict is a natural and inevitable part of any relationship, including family. The key is in how we handle it. Avoiding conflict by suppressing our feelings can lead to resentment, and over time this can cause emotional distance or even rupture the relationship. By embracing calm communication, we allow ourselves to address issues in a way that promotes understanding and resolution, rather than allowing them to fester and grow into bigger problems. The effectiveness of calm communication relies on practice and consistency. It may not always come naturally, especially if we are used to reacting quickly or becoming defensive. However, the more we practice expressing our feelings calmly and using "I feel" statements, the more natural it becomes. Over time, family members will also begin to understand and respect this approach, which can lead to healthier, more open, and more compassionate interactions. Ultimately, responding with calm communication helps to create a foundation for healthier family dynamics. By addressing issues calmly and respectfully, we foster an environment where both parties feel safe expressing their emotions and concerns. This approach not only resolves conflicts more effectively, but also strengthens the bonds between family members. Through calm communication, we can ensure that even when family crosses the line, we are able to respond in a way that fosters understanding, respect, and ultimately healing. In conclusion, navigating the complexities of family dynamics can often be challenging, especially when boundaries are crossed. The emotions that arise in such situations are real and valid, and it's crucial to address them in a way that promotes healing and respect for all involved. Family is unique in that it can be both a source of immense support and, at times, an area where the deepest wounds are inflicted. Yet, through effective communication and the ability to assert our needs clearly and calmly, we can create relationships that are healthier, more respectful, and deeply understanding. The first key element in responding when family crosses the line is the power of setting clear boundaries. These boundaries are not walls designed to push people away, but rather markers of respect and self-preservation. By setting boundaries, we protect our emotional health and ensure that our needs are heard and valued. This process starts with recognizing when our boundaries have been crossed. It is important to acknowledge how we feel and then communicate these feelings with clarity. Setting boundaries with respect and firmness is essential in maintaining our peace, but it is also necessary for creating relationships that are rooted in mutual respect. When we express our limits, we provide others with the opportunity to adjust their behaviors. But this can only happen if we communicate these boundaries in a clear and constructive manner. The ability to be firm in upholding these boundaries, even in the face of resistance, ensures that we protect our personal well-being without compromising our values. The second key component is responding with calm communication. Calm communication is an art that allows us to express our emotions in a way that fosters understanding rather than conflict. It is about pausing before reacting and carefully choosing how we convey our feelings. The use of "I feel" statements is an invaluable tool in this process. By focusing on our emotional experience rather than blaming or accusing others, we create space for empathy and understanding. For example, instead of saying "you always disrespect me," which immediately puts the other person on the defensive, we can reframe it as "I feel disrespected when you make comments about my decisions." This approach not only helps to diffuse any tension, but also makes it more likely that the other person will listen and be open to a meaningful conversation. Communication in this way allows both parties to engage in a dialogue where the focus is on resolution and mutual understanding rather than on accusations or feelings of guilt. Being clear and specific about what we need also plays a critical role in how we respond when family crosses the line. Specificity helps to avoid misunderstandings and ensures that the person we are communicating with understands exactly what behavior was harmful and why. It is easy to make general statements, but being specific helps the other person to see the exact action or words that cross the line. This clarity gives them an opportunity to address the issue and avoid repeating the same mistake in the future. At the same time, it allows us to take responsibility for expressing our feelings without overgeneralizing or exaggerating the situation. Equally important is the act of listening, which is often overlooked in difficult conversations. For communication to be truly effective, it must be a two-way street. It's not only about speaking, but also about hearing and understanding the other person's point of view. Active listening allows us to show respect for the other person's feelings and concerns, even if we don't agree with them. It creates an opportunity for empathy and can help prevent the conversation from devolving into an argument. This doesn't mean we have to change our stance or back down from asserting our needs, but listening allows us to respond thoughtfully rather than react emotionally. It helps us to recognize that the other person's actions may stem from their own feelings, misunderstandings, or stress, and it can lead to a more productive and compassionate exchange. It is important to realize that calm communication doesn't always prevent conflict, but it certainly shapes how the conflict is managed. Conflict in families is inevitable. People have different perspectives, values, and experiences that inform their behavior. These differences are natural and part of what makes relationships so rich. However, it is how we choose to address these conflicts that ultimately determines the health and strength of the relationship. By responding with calm communication and setting boundaries, we not only address the issue at hand, but also create a foundation for deeper mutual respect. When family members feel that their feelings are being acknowledged, and when they see that conflict can be resolved in a way that doesn't involve hostility, they are more likely to respect the boundaries and communication styles we set. The role of self-awareness cannot be overstated in this process. To communicate effectively and set boundaries, we first must understand ourselves, what our needs are, what makes us uncomfortable, and what behaviors we are unwilling to tolerate. Self-awareness allows us to be clear in expressing our limits and ensures that our responses are rooted in authenticity. If we are not in tune with our own emotions, we may struggle to communicate our needs in a way that others can understand. Therefore, taking the time for introspection is critical in helping us navigate situations when family crosses the line. At the same time, we must also recognize that boundaries and communication are ongoing practices. They are not one-time events, but continuous processes that evolve over time. As we grow and change, so too do our needs and the boundaries we set. Similarly, family dynamics are never static, and what may have been acceptable in the past may no longer be appropriate as relationships evolve. Regular communication about boundaries and feelings is essential to keeping relationships healthy. It's important to remain flexible and open to revisiting boundaries and adjusting them as necessary. This ongoing dialogue is essential in building strong, resilient relationships that can withstand challenges and grow through conflict. As we work through difficult moments with family members, we must also give ourselves and others grace. No one is perfect, and mistakes will be made. Sometimes boundaries will be crossed unintentionally, or emotions may run high. The key is to approach these situations with a mindset of growth rather than blame. When we respond thoughtfully, we set an example for others in the family on how to manage conflict with respect and empathy. By doing so, we create an environment where open, honest, and respectful communication is the norm, making it easier to navigate future challenges.